Denny Poole, and a friend wanted what most 15-year-old kids want, the attention and affections of a pretty girl, and they thought they had struck gold when they began speaking with the girl on the internet. But soon, these common longings would turn into a situation far more serious than the two could ever have imagined. Those affected recall the day as having been a cool and chilly one, typical of the March afternoons of Fort St. John, a rather large city in British Columbia, Canada, located at mile 47 of the Alaska Highway. It is one of the biggest cities between Dawson Creek, British Columbia, and Delta Junction, Alaska. Denny Poole and a friend had made plans to meet a girl they'd connected with online that very day. Though they'd never met her in person, they'd been communicating with her through the use of Facebook, then highly popular as a social network for teens and young adults. Although more recently, such platforms have been replaced by Snapchat or Instagram. With only a few days between him and his 15th birthday, Denny was in a transitional phase of life that all adolescents find themselves in, hovering between the mentality of a child and the desires of an adult. It would be these desires that would eventually prove disastrous. Relatives recall that Denny was still growing into his body with blanky arms and a soft smile that reached to his eyes. He was described as quiet and found joy in playing video games raised by his grandmother, Jenny. Jenny was living with her when he went missing. The two last spoke on the phone at around 10 a.m. on March 12th, the day he went missing, about halfway between their home city and their destination city. As the sun set over the Cascadena River Canyon, the two boys, most likely exhausted, split up, and while one made it home, the other is yet to be found. Investigators are still working on figuring out exactly what happened next. But in all these years, Denny has never been located. Jenny recalls that he said, quote, "I'll be home pretty soon, Mommy." Denny said that he was walking down 8th Street in Dawson Creek at the time I told him. She recalls, quote, "Call before you get back." But I never heard from him again. It is not clear when Denny and his friend actually left Dawson's Creek. The two split up at around 7:30 p.m. on the south side of the Cascadena River. If the two would walk the entire way on the highway, getting there would have taken over 6 hours, as the track was nearly 40 miles. The kids may have not planned on being out after dark. Denny was reportedly wearing a gray sweatshirt, jeans, and running shoes. The low temperature that day was -6 degrees Celsius, which is 21 degrees Fahrenheit. After the two split up, the details became unclear. Dennis' friend, after they parted, called Canadian Mounted Police at 7:52 p.m. to report what police described as a suspicious occurrence. But later, investigators postulated that this phone call and the teen's subsequent claims, although they never reported this specific claims, may have been the result of what they quote, hypothermic delusion. At some point during the call, a man with what police believed was a South Asian accent took over the call politely, but confusedly speaking to police on the boy's phone, saying that he'd stopped to help the young man who was, quote, acting strange. Both Denny's friend and the man with the accent were ruled out as suspects. Alicia, Denny's sister, recalls police driving up and down the highways in the dense Canadian backroads around the river. That night, police began the search as soon as her brother was reported missing. However, they found no sign of him. Denny Poole was last seen on the south side of the Cascadena River Bridge. Search crews poured over the surrounding areas, but found no clues. Shyla Brune, a social worker with Aboriginal Family Services, who's been a spokesperson for the family, makes the parallel between Denny's disappearance and another disturbing trend on British Columbia's highways, the Highway of Tears, so named after the brutal government LED massacre and so-called relocation of natives, which was nicknamed the Trail of Tears. The so-called Highway of Tears is a 725-kilometer corridor, around 450 miles of Highway 16, between Prince George and Prince Rupert, British Columbia, Canada. and gets its name from the alarming amount of victims that have disappeared. While traveling that pathway, Brune reflects in the reality that someone must know something. Quote someone. Somewhere knows something about all of these women. And about Denny, they don't just disappear. Alicia Poole, Danny's older sister, will always hold out hope, however. She says, quote, "Until there's a body in front of me, or there's definitive proof, my brother is not here anymore. In my mind, he's still alive. Everyone else can think what they want." Three brothers Michell, 5 years old, Trevor 11, and Adam 14, were all under the loving care of their mother, Diana Boland, who had won full custody of her kids after her divorce with their father. Gary O'Brien Gary had retained visitation rights well. They resided with their mother in Labrador, Canada. A court order required that she allow the father of the children access to them on regularly scheduled weekend visits. In November of 1996, the siblings, somewhat unwillingly, made their way to their father's house in Torbay, Newfoundland, for their regularly scheduled weekly visitation. The youngest, Michell, had been sick, and their mother had begged Gary to allow the little one to stay with her and rest, but her pleas were lost on deaf ears. Gary was adamant that the three brothers come to his home together for their weekly visit. Later that night at around 8:30 p.m., Gary called Diana and told her that the boys would not be returning to her house ever. He told her that he had built a trap in his home that would explode if anyone tried to enter it. He also told her that she would never get to see her boys again. When Diana asked if she could talk to the boys, he said later and hung up the phone. Diana and her sister immediately notified police. When police arrived at Gary's house, they discovered a makeshift bomb made up of two 400-pound propane tanks, which could have easily destroyed his home, as well as neighboring houses, if anyone had tried to enter it. The police did not find Gary or the boys anywhere, and they have remained missing ever since. The abduction made national headlines, and police received several tips, but to no avail. A year later, in 1997, the engine assembly of Gary's 1989 Ford Tempo would be found in the ocean near Flat Rock, 10 kilometers from Gary's home. A search of the area was conducted, but nothing else turned up. Diana believes that Gary dumped the car engine from a cliff into the ocean in order to mislead investigators. The following year, in 1998, an unknown woman from Thunder Bay, Ontario, called the police and told them that she knew the boys from the pictures. She said that she had babysat for them and even told them the nickname of one of the boys, which was not known to the general public. However, the woman never contacted them again. Police tried to locate her for a year, but with no luck. Gary's sister believes that Gary and her nephews have passed. However, Diana firmly believes her sons are still alive and are possibly living off of the grid, with no access to technology or the outside world. Over the years, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has created several age progression photos in hopes of anyone recognizing the boys. Gary is wanted by Interpol for the abduction of his 3 children, setting traps to cause bodily harm, and interfering in a criminal investigation. The case remains open and unsolved. Michael Dunn was a 4-year-old boy living with his parents, Crystal and Bruce Dunahee, in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. On the windy afternoon of March 24, 1991, Crystal and Bruce Dunahee took their kids, Michael and his baby sister Caitlin, to the Blanchard Elementary School to watch Crystal's flag football game. When the family arrived at the school, Michael asked his parents if he could go play at the playground, which was only a short distance away from the football field. It was a clear day, and being that the playground was within sight of the field, his mother agreed. His mother later told investigators, quote, "I bent down and tied his hood up and told him, 'Okay, you can go to the park. Wait there and don't leave with anybody. Just wait there and Daddy will come and get you.'" There were several children and a few adults in the playground, so she says that she was not worried. Crystal looked down to put on her cleats. Bruce went to check on the score of the previous match, which was but a short distance away, and when they looked back at the playground, only moments later, Michael was nowhere to be seen. Police were notified almost immediately, and a massive search was carried out, one of the largest search operations in Canada's history. As Michael disappeared so quickly, investigators classified it as an abduction case. They believe that Michael never made it out of the playground and was abducted. Within the perimeter of the parking lot, police interviewed everyone at the school grounds, and the parking lot, the only clue they ever got was that a man in his 40s or 50s was seen near the playground with a brown van. But despite extensive searches and thousands of tips, no sign of Michael was ever found. Police interviewed all known sex offenders in the neighborhood. To no avail over the years, several people who resembled Michael's appearance were DNA tested but eliminated. Michael's family still maintains hope that Michael is alive and will someday make his way back home. At the time of his disappearance, 4-year-old Michael was wearing a blue hooded jacket, a Ninja Turtles t-shirt, and rugby pants. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. The cases remain unsolved for more than 31 years. Summer Wells was a 5-year-old girl who disappeared from her home in Beach Creek, Hawkins County in Tennessee. According to Summer's father, Donald Wells, Summer was planting flowers with her mother, Candace, and her grandmother in the front yard of their home. Sometime around 6 p.m., Summer went inside and told her 3 brothers, who were watching TV, that she was going downstairs to the basement to play with her toys. However, when her mother Candace came inside, she could not find her anywhere. She noticed that the basement door was unlocked. The family believes that someone abducted Summer through the unlocked basement door. The family searched around the home and notified police. At around 6:30 p.m., an Amber Alert was issued for Summer. The following day, an extensive search was carried out for the missing child. However, as the area around Summer's home was rugged and covered in dense brush, the search was hampered. Investigators asked the neighbors and people living on or near Ben Hill Road to check their trail cameras or their CCTVs for any clues, but found no new info. Police received several tips, but none were fruitful. Investigators questioned family and friends. Donald told police that at the time of Summer's disappearance, he was at work. His sons were inside the home, and his wife and grandmother were outside, planting flowers. None of them reported hearing or seeing anything suspicious. The 3 brothers were underage at the time, and there are no known public statements from them published in the media. Search dogs picked up Somerset on the trail, but it stops near a road. Donald believes that Summer may have been picked up and bundled into a car. Investigators announced that they were looking for a man driving a red or maroon Toyota pickup truck with ladders on the back. This car may have been in the area the day of Summer's disappearance. The driver has yet to be identified. On July 12th, Donald informed media that both he, his wife, and his mother-in-law had all passed a lie detector test. 6 weeks after Summer's disappearance, 3 brothers were removed from the Wells family home. It is unclear why the brothers were removed from the home, but in an interview, Donald told media that his house was a dangerous place to be, amid a slew of threats being made against him in Candace, which led to him drinking heavily. He also said that many people were coming to his home and accusing him of being responsible for his daughter's disappearance. It is worth noting that Donald has had prior run-ins with the law. He's had prior convictions for multiple felonies, including possessing drugs and burglaries in the states of Arkansas, Utah, and Texas. On October 15, 2020, a year before Summer's disappearance, Donald was charged with domestic assault, possession of a handgun, while intoxicated, and unlawful possession of a weapon. Donald reportedly came home drunk one night and found a man in the house. He believed that Candace was cheating on him. The couple had an argument which got heated, and in a rage he claims that he pushed Candace down, causing an injury to her knee. Candace called police, and Donald was arrested. Police said that Donald was under the influence of alcohol and possessed a .22 caliber handgun in his pickup truck. He was put on probation. His wife had filed an order for protection against Donald, claiming that she feared for her and her children's safety. However, she dropped it 3 days later, and the couple appeared to have reconciled. On October 31, 2021, a few months after Summer's disappearance, Donald was arrested for driving under the influence, possessing an open container, having expired registration, improper lane usage, and violation of financial responsibilities, presumably driving without insurance. The state dropped the rest of the charges, but he was charged with driving under the influence, for which he pled guilty. However, since his arrest violated his previous probation, he was sentenced to 11 months and 29 days in jail, as well as 96 hours of community service for possession of a firearm while under the influence. At the time of her disappearance, Summer was described as being 3 feet tall, weighing about 40 pounds, with short blonde hair and blue eyes. She was last seen wearing gray pants and a pink shirt.